Hello, Lou Hamilton from Audible Elegance here in Cincinnati, Ohio. And we are located a couple doors north of the original Montgomery Inn, across the street from Montgomery Cyclery. We do work on Facebook, X, and Instagram. I also write a monthly blog, but I've been a bit preoccupied with my wife's health, so I've had to forego that for a little bit. I thought I would talk today about one of the absurdities that I see in the used market. And it's the Marantz product line and the ridiculous prices that are being asked for it. It's not uncommon, for example, to see the receiver like the 2325, people asking $3,000 for a 50-year-old receiver. And the reason I feel qualified to talk about all this is because when those products were brand new, I actually was selling them. And quite familiar with that series and the series before, and then the DC series that followed. And I'm sorry to tell people who think that Marantz is a great product line of that era, it's not. And if you get into the separates, which I've bought several sets of them even as early as 10 or 15 years ago, there's no way you can make those things musical. They make sound and it can be very pretty, but if you're looking for, rhythm, pitch, and emotion out of it, I'm sorry, they don't deliver. If you talk about some of the big old power amps, like the 510 and the 250s, well, you have to understand that those things were built using Darlington output transistors. And with the way the design was, and in the service department at Sight and Sound, I got to watch some of these things. When one of those transistors would fail, you would literally have a cascade of the whole channel blowing up. Every transistor got wiped out at the same time. And again, they're not that musical. They're not that good. The monies that people are asking for it is just total nonsense. The smaller tuners, the 110, 112, 115, they're garbage. They're simply garbage. They're not very sensitive and they don't sound that good anyway. I own the 125s, which was all right. I've got to have the oscilloscope, so I had the 150, and it was an okay sounding tuner, but again, nothing special about it per se. In comparing it against the Kenwood tuners of the same era, the KT-8300, for example, the 8300 in terms of its ability to pick up signal, because I was doing DXing on FM of all things, was simply superior. Although the Kenwood tuners were no more musical, they were just a different tonal balance, so they weren't that good. Now, there is one piece in the Marantz line that is in fact special. And it's their smallest integrated amplifier called the 1030. And it had a whopping output of 15 watts a channel. And the only way I can describe the 1030 is that it was the American version of Name Audio's Name Nate. Very simple, wonderful sounding, very musical. And in many cases, as Julian Veriker would say, how much power does it have? Sufficient. Absolutely ideal combining with Klipsch loudspeakers, because they don't take very much power to get up and going anyway, but an extremely musical piece. You go up to the line into the 1060s and up. The 1060 is not nearly as good. I personally own the 1150 and the 1150D. I could never understand why I was never happy with my system until I got rid of it. Were they better than the Yamahas of that era? Yes. Yamaha was a mess in that whole era. They had so much negative feedback, it was just dreadful. But the Marantzes are not anywhere worth the value that people are asking for them today. And even back in the 70s when we were selling Marantz, it was as if the Marantz name was still carrying forward the original Saul Marantz product lines. The 7C, his whole series of vacuum tube amplifiers, which were wonderful. I've owned 7Cs and 2 pair of Model 9s, great amplifier designs. They're dated today, but they were truly outstanding in their day. But, if you're looking for vintage equipment, I really seriously recommend taking a wander over to Sansui. Sansui equipment was very musical, could easily drive even things that drive most amplifiers crazy, which were magnepans, could light them up. The only thing you have to be careful about with the Sansuis is that their input stages were not really designed for high output CD players. So you would overload the preamplifier with it. I ran into that with like the 771s. But again, very musical. The Sansui tuners, by far and away, are the best deal in the market, musically speaking. It crushed things like the Canon L70T and the big Yamaha CT1000. I had those. I'm sorry, but the Sansui tuners, were just really wonderful pieces of product, particularly if you get into the 7000 series. That's where the real value is. But I'm sorry, those people who think they're buying a piece of Saul Marantz like they did in the 70s, no, that's not true. Were they great product? No, they were well-built product, but they weren't particularly musical. And if you think, I had a comment on one of my articles about, used equipment, that if you think that the satisfaction of owning vintage equipment is that you get a wood cabinet that you can polish, you're forgetting the reason to get it. If you like the polishing things, go out and buy yourself a wood table or a real nice wood piece of furniture. A receiver typically is to be listened to, and most of the people put them in a cabinet behind doors anyway, so I don't get it. And so I'm sorry, but the Marantz is not a good value, and I have to say it because I'm just seeing people ask stupid money. And to be honest, the people who are selling it for these ridiculous prices, they're flippers. They find it at somebody's, estate sale or, God knows where. There's no care in trying to refurbish it whatsoever. And they just see the market price out there, and so they find the latest price on, Audio Gone or eBay, and they'll apply that on Facebook Marketplace and everything else. I mean, I've really seen some stupid prices. And I'm sorry, it's not a good value. I've got to say it. If you're into bedroom blue dials or bedroom blue for colors, buy yourself a Rogue, preamplifier because they use a blue display. There's your bedroom blue. It's happy. Well, then it's much better sounding. But I'm sorry, it's not good value at all. And I just simply have to say it. There we are.